Neil, welcome to CFO at Home. Thanks for your time today.
No, I'm so grateful that you would invite me, and I'm honored to be on your show.
Awesome. So I usually start these conversations out getting my guests to give me a little bit of their background and exactly how they became subject matter experts in their area. We'll do the same thing now, but I'm going to have fun actually asking the question this way. So, Anil, how did you become the love doctor?
I would speak at masterminds, different groups, and occasionally people would say, "Hey, what does the love doctor think here? Let's hear from the love doctor." And I thought, "Oh, that's me." And it was just coincidence, or was it? I'm not sure. But several groups, independent of each other, started calling me that. And I thought, I kind of like that. I thought, oh, I kind of like that. So I just adopted it. I didn't come up with it. Someone came up with separately, independently, came up with it, and I just took it on, and I absolutely love it.
That is great. Naturally, they pick that up from the work that you're doing. You're an author, you're a speaker. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing that inspired people to tag you the love doctor.
So I have a unique ability. I cast myself as the last relationship expert you ever need to meet. So my gift is this: I can remove the obstacles that are preventing you from leading richer, fuller, happier lives. What I'm noticing nowadays, a lot of families have issues with their kids. The kids are growing up enabled and entitled, and it's causing a lot of friction. As human beings, we know we're going to get married, and there's a 50-50 chance of having a divorce. We know that, and we accept that. But it's never going to happen to us. We all think that. But we never think that we would be disconnected from our children. And that's even more painful because, one, we don't expect it. Two, it's really painful. And the kids tend to be weaponized when families split. So it's really important that we have beautiful communication, authentic communication. And communication is one of the main reasons relationships continue. And if you have great communication, and we're talking about finance as well, if your finances are not in order, or if there's a miscommunication in finances, that's one of the leading causes of breakups.
Yeah, so I will just briefly say that what you said about kids really hit me in a couple of places in real time. We're just a couple of days from the whole Rob Reiner situation, which was a tragedy, and also just some things that I'm dealing with family members. As far as those kids, you are right on point. But back to specifically money in relationships, I've seen these quotes that I don't know, 50 or 60% of disagreements in a marriage or in a relationship come down to money. And I've had other experts, not in your expertise, but I've had other experts on, and we've talked about that. So I'll go with this from the same direction that I've gone at it with them. When you hear that statistic, I'm imagining that relates back to the miscommunication that you're talking about. So, in your opinion, these fights that happen within relationships about money, you're really saying that it's not about money, it's about miscommunicating about money or miscommunicating about life. Dig into that a little bit for us, please.
Okay. So about 75% of divorces are instigated by women. Now, one of the big things for a woman is to feel safe. So if there's not that financial security, she doesn't feel safe. She wants to feel secure. She wants to have certainty. She wants to be heard. She wants to be understood. She wants her man to be present. So when there's financial issues, normally the men are not present. They're not creating an atmosphere of safety. And by not communicating, that just makes things worse. So it's a combination of things. But it all stems down to communication. If you can communicate to your partner, so for example, a classic example, November 2008, 17 years ago, I was on the verge of suicide. I'd lost everything in the stock market, real estate. And I thought, I better tell my wife. So I went up. We were in a hotel at the time. I went up to the hotel room and I said, honey, something really bad has happened. She looked up at me. I was a little bit concerned, obviously. I said, honey, I've been gambling on the stock market, real estate, and I've lost everything, the house, the cars, the student fees, everything. We're going to be destitute. And Vincent, she looked up at me and she smiled. And I thought, what's wrong with you? Did you not hear what I said? I thought I was communicating really powerfully. She said, I knew something was wrong because you've been behaving strangely. Obviously, I was behaving strangely because when you lose everything, you're not going to keep calm. And she said, honey, I thought it was something serious. And I thought, what are you talking about? This is really serious. There's nothing more serious than this in my world. And then she said, I thought you had cancer. I thought you were dying. I don't care about the money. Vincent, when someone says that to you, all your worries disappear. And then she said this, you made one big mistake. I thought I knew it. I couldn't, expect a beautiful situation. I just said, honey, you still have me. You still have the kids. We'll sleep in the streets if we have to.
Wow.
Vincent, when you have someone like that behind you, it's like rocket fuel. So I started doing events, 5, 10, 20, 30 people, 50 people, 100, 500, eventually 10,000 people. I wrote this bestseller book, TEDx, Fox News, Sky TV, ABC, NBC, iHeartRadio. Harvard invited me to speak. Me. Who would have
Wow.
thought? But if that hadn't happened and if that communication from my wife was any different, we wouldn't be here. I may not be here. So it's vital that we communicate and communicate authentically. Say, honey, we're in trouble. What can we do? And then listen to your wife, listen to your partner, and work things out together, because you can compound your thoughts and ideas together and create something magical. And then you have a great story to tell. Then you can get on podcasts like this.
And I would imagine that that was the opposite of the response that you expected, which was not only a relief to you to hear her say that, but I'm still thinking about how much of a relief it was to her to hear that, because not hearing that and just picking up on, I know something's wrong, but he's not telling me, automatically her mind went to what she really considers to be the worst case scenario, which doesn't have anything to do with money. It has to do with your health, your well being. And the communication part of that is the lesson. If you had just shared it with her in the first place, because something you thought you were keeping from her, you were not keeping from her, because we communicate with our behavior as much as we do with words. So, how would we specifically apply that lesson to a situation? I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. A husband, and this could go either way, but let's just say a husband who's been trying to manage the finances and has created this budget, and is, honey, we really need to stick to this budget. You've got this much a month for this and this much a month for that. And she nods her head and goes, yeah, whatever. Doesn't adhere to that plan. It causes tension, it causes money fights. In that scenario, how what's an alternative way of approaching that in order to open up better conversations about money than, I created this budget, we need to stick to it, you're spending too much, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So in that situation, the woman doesn't feel safe. She doesn't feel secure. She doesn't feel understood. She doesn't feel heard. She doesn't feel she matters. And you're talking to her. I think a better approach would be to sit there and say, honey, I would love to get your advice and input on our budget, because I think we're going to be in a difficulty if we continue the way we are. I've de- decided to cut down here and here, and I would love your feedback. Would you be open to sitting down and creating something that we can adhere to so that we can lead a richer, fuller, happier life. Then she feels that she's part of it and he's not pointing fingers at her. Because when you point a finger at someone else, there's three fingers pointing back at you. By him saying, I've made these changes, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to give this up, it allows an opening, it allows her to feel safe. And from there, just have authentic communication. I didn't ask my wife, honey, what is it you want from me? I thought she wanted money, so that's what I was driven for. But how cool would it be if you just asked your wife, asked your husband, what is it you want from me? What is it that I can give you that I haven't been giving you? What is it I could do to make you feel more loved? What is it I can do to make you feel more respected? People don't do that. They're thinking about me. And when you make your partner your number one priority, they'll never leave you. And if they make you their number one partner, it's an ideal situation. And that's what happens when you first meet. You're dating, everything's great, you do everything for the other person, they do everything for you. Then after a while, it becomes transactional. He didn't do that, I'm not going to do that. She didn't do that, I'm not going to do that. So communication is everything. The communication you have with your partner, also the communication you have with yourself. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, there's something wrong with me, I'm not lovable, I'm not smart, I'm not successful, I can never do this. These are all communications that change your vibrational energy. When you have a beautiful vibrational energy in the partnership, all sorts of beautiful things can happen. If you have a partner that believes in you, your vibrational energy changes and you can do a lot more. You can start thinking a lot more differently. And then you know that you've got someone behind you supporting you. It makes all the difference there, Vincent.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on a couple of points that you brought up there. One of which is this communication that you're talking about. In my experience, the communication is important, but I'll go back to the example that you were using about when people first get together and they're dating or whatever. Not only are they really listening to each other, but there is a great willingness to compromise in those situations. What do you want to do tonight? Oh, I don't know. What do you want to do tonight? Would you like Italian food? Sure, I like Italian food, even though maybe you don't like Italian food. You got to go with the flow. You want to watch this movie? Sure. You're thinking, I hate rom coms, but this is more of the deal. So there's a lot of compromise. To what extent is compromise or the ability to compromise a part of this? Because getting the communication flowing is one thing. But at the end of the day, there's always the possibility of reaching an impasse in terms of really what I want to do or how I feel like we need to handle a situation versus how you feel like we need to handle a situation. We talk a lot on this podcast about people's money stories and how that shapes their behavior. So we come into these things, we come into these conversations with different views about money, different values, different priorities. And at some point, even if we're open and willing to have a conversation, at some point, my money story is going to bump into your money story. And there is going to be some level of not necessarily conflict, but some level of disagreement at the root. So even once you open yourself up to these conversations and you've established that trust that we've been talking about, how do you deal with the inevitable situation of when you come to these conflicts, a lot of which go back to the childhood way we see money?
Yeah. So you use the word inevitable. It's not inevitable. They just don't have the tools, the methodologies, and the systems that I teach people. So let me give you an example. Let's role play. I'll be the husband, you be the wife. Okay. And you want to watch a movie, and I don't want to watch a movie. Okay. So
Right.
instead of having this conflict, we can remove all the emotion. Okay. So, for example, I'd say, honey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that you want to watch this movie?
I love Sandra Bullock movies. So it is very important for me to watch this movie. I got to see this movie.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being an absolute must and 0 never ever. What's the score?
I got to give it a solid eight. I got to
Okay.
give it a solid eight.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of movies like that. And for me, the score is 4. I don't want to watch it, but that's my score. It's a 4. But because your score is higher, I would love to join you and support you.
You're going to make me cry.
Honey, I love you. You're a beautiful soul. I love being with you. I just happy to sit with you, and seeing you happy makes me happy.
I love you too. And scene. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. But in that is, would you call that compromise?
No, it's not compromise because supposing there's something I want to do, I can say it's a 10 out of 10. I do this. And she'll understand saying, I don't really want to go, but it's a 10 for him. I want to please him. So it's not a compromise, it's a support, but without the emotion.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So,
And
so sorry, here's
and
another situation.
okay.
Supposing I want to go to a party and you absolutely don't want to go. So it's a 9. You can't use high numbers every single time. You can't say, oh, it's a 10, it's a 10, it's a 10. So, honey, this one's a 10 for me. And you say, oh, it's a 1 for you. So I thought, honey, it's a 10 for me and it's a 1 for you. I know that you really don't want to go. So I have a solution. Why don't we both go and then you can leave early if you like? How would that work for you?
If I can go for 15 minutes and show my face, that'll work.
If you could do 17, oh my gosh, I would be filled.
Okay, that's just a couple of more minutes. I could do that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And maybe you like it, but if you don't, you're more than happy, more than free to leave. Just give me a hug and a kiss before you leave.
You got it.
Okay, I'll be hiding somewhere. But can you see that's it's not necessarily a compromise. It's something that can facilitate a loving, caring, beautiful relationship.
Yeah, and there's a thin line in a way between those two things for me, but a very important distinction because at least for me, when I think of compromise, to me that kind of sounds who wins, who loses. So if I compromise, this time I lost, next time you compromise, I'll win. But there is this kind of implicit keeping score where it's like I compromised the last time, it's your turn, that type of thing. And it turns into that, I think, mentally or as a temptation to where if you're talking about support is unlimited, ideally, who's going to ever argue about support? Because support is more of a situational reciprocal thing. And I'm always going to support you. And if I feel supported by you, just naturally, emotionally, then I'm going to want to reciprocate with that discussion. So it seems like that would flow a little bit more naturally emotionally than compromise where okay we're gonna keep score, I gave you this one but the next one's mine.
Yeah. And when you compromise, there's a little bit of resentment. This way,
Yes.
there's no resentment. It's I'm supporting someone. I'm helping
Yes.
them. I'm making them feel good. And then you start feeling good. Then you don't feel resentful. You feel, oh, okay, this guy. How can I make it more fun? How can I make it more enjoyable?
So let's apply this to a money situation. Let's say that in the course of a discussion I'm traditional. I come from a family that managed money conservatively and that type of thing. I was taught as a kid to save and be frugal and that type of thing. That's the way I'm wired. So when I'm talking with my spouse to put together a plan, I am emphasizing saving and frugality just because that's my worldview from the way I grew up. Let's say that my spouse has a different view on things and really wants to more live in the moment. So we're talking about money, and I'm talking about saving, and my spouse really wants to maybe budget more for travel, that type of thing. We just have those different priorities. That can very easily turn into a win lose situation where there's resentment between the person who wins and the person who loses. If I win and we're legitimately saving money for the future, I'm doing a good thing for the family, but my spouse is going to feel that in the moment because maybe that's just that is what she grew up with. She as a little girl dreamed on going on all of these trips and that type of thing, and I'm taking that away from her. So, how do we apply what we've talked about in terms of support instead of compromise to a situation like that?
Yeah. And that's a great question, really great question. And the way we have to look at it is really communicating, saying, honey, what's the outcome you would like? And let's focus on the outcome and let's see how we can create that outcome. It's a we. And I would say, look, the way I was brought up, we were brought up very frugally. And I would love your support in providing me with some insights and a breakthrough because I want to have magical moments with you. And it's very difficult for me to overcome 30 years of the way I've been brought up, but I'm willing to do so. Would you help and guide me through this process? And that way, there's no fight or there's no confrontation. I'm asking for help. And then she can start understanding where I'm coming from. And it's the same with families. If you come from an Italian family who are used to raising their voices and being expressive, and they go into a family that doesn't do that, it can be very intimidating. But once you have that conversation, I'm always like this because my family's like this.
Right,
Oh, I understand now. It's not that
right.
you're being abrasive or rude or aggressive. It's just that's the way your family are.
I never thought we were going to get to upon this conversation where I said this in any conversation I've had on this podcast, but I'm going to say it for a second. Can I be your wife again?
Oh, oh yeah.
So you just opened yourself up to me and you told me about your background, and it's I need you to guide me through this process.
Okay.
My response might be something to the extent of, I would love to guide you through this process, but you also have to understand where I'm coming from. I, as a little girl, I always wanted to travel, and I would see the neighbors do these things and I would be so jealous and dejected. And I would watch these TV shows and these movies about all these fabulous lives. So that's really important to me. So I can guide you through this, but at the end of the day, I want to go to Paris.
Yeah. And I would love to take you to Paris. It would give me the greatest joy. And when you were a little kid, did you dream of meeting Prince Charming?
I did, and he took me to Paris.
And I will. You have my word, I will take you to Paris. But it may not just be now, because the thing is, I want to take you and enjoy the process. But if I'm worried about the financial side of it, I'm not going to show up the best version of you. And I don't want to feel resentment. It would give me the greatest pleasure to take you to Paris. It's the most romantic place on earth, possibly. I love you very much. You completely changed my life. And I just want to spend beautiful moments with you. I want to have more magical moments. I want to have moments that take our breath away. And I know that there's ways to do that. Let's find out how we can do that.
Wow, it's getting hot in here. No, but- I'm sorry. But seriously, I can see how that would work. But I think in order for a person to do something like that, you really have to know your own emotions. You really have to. An answer like that requires a certain amount of self awareness because you really have to be in touch with what's not only what you want, but what's motivating you. And if you're really in touch with that and you're really listening to what the other person is motivated by, your motivations, their motivations, then you can deal. But I think, and certainly I can point to myself in the past where I'm just so sure that I know the way to do this. Not only do I have a money story, I feel like I have the money story. And it's not, oh, it's because I was raised this way. But no, in my mind, it's because it's the right way to do things, period, point blank, end of story. So the ability to go back, understand your own motivations, and then be vulnerable enough to navigate a conversation like that's a skill. That's not something that innately, I guess it innately comes to some people, but for a lot of people, that's just not something that automatically pops in their head.
So, Vincent, I never used to be like this. I was at times quite abrasive, egotistical, and not the greatest communicator. I was guilty, but it's a muscle, and we can develop this muscle through practice. See, awareness gives you clarity, clarity gives you focus, focus gives you action, action gives you results, results gives you momentum, momentum gives you everything. So you just have to practice, practice. And this is what we do in when we're coaching people. We practice, we role play so that you get better at it. Now, you're already better at this because we've done it a few times. You just have to practice in the mirror, use specific wording, languaging, tone is very important with women. And it's very important for men. If my wife sometimes would shriek at me, and I would say, honey, every time you use that tone, I cannot listen to you. I will never do whatever you're asking me. But if you come at me and say, honey, do you have a few minutes? I have an issue I'd love your input in. I will always listen to you. So the secret is not to react, but to respond. Always listening. See, we're not listening to our partners. We're thinking of what to say. And remember why you married them in the first place. We forget that too.
And I imagine that you have to also have some patience when you do that. It is getting way too simple for me to become your wife, so we're gonna have to wrap this up in a bit. But when you talked about the shrieking and you maybe say, honey, when you're shrieking at me like that can lead down a bad road. What do you mean shrieking? I don't shriek. That kind of thing. So you may have to weather some storms in order to get to where you're going, or at least I think that, because you may be, particularly if maybe you haven't communicated in the best way possible and you've already damaged or set a certain expectation in communication, that if I come to you and say something like that, and I even imply that you're in any way unpleasant at any time whatsoever, the defenses automatically go up and we're not going to have a conversation. So, particularly, it sounds like if maybe you've already done some damage just being you, and I've done my damage in the past, you have to maybe again, that's another little self-awareness. It's like, all right, this is going to take a while because I have not been the best person in these conversations in the past. So this is not going to be I changed my ways and everything's hunky-dory. I got to commit myself to undoing the damage I've done. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I used the word shriek in commas. I would never have said that, but I said, honey, I want to serve you. I want to look after you. I want to give you everything that I possibly can. And if you could do this instead of this, it would help me a lot. And then whenever I do upset, I say, look, honey, I'm so sorry. My intention was never to upset you. Please forgive me. Could we talk about the subject again? So it's how you show up. It's a vibrational energy. And just apologize. There's something called, I call the right shoulder rule. So if I said to you, rip off your right shoulder and give it to me, knowing you would bleed to death, would you do it? It's a hell no. Absolute no. Yeah. All right. But that's a rule that you have. It's a good rule. Keep it. Okay. But
Right.
what if you had the same rule for your happiness? If you had the same rule for your love, I'm never going to give the way my happiness away. I'm never going to give my love of my life, of my wife away. That changes everything.
So these are clearly skills. We've talked about a couple of examples here. We've talked about some things directionally, but in the short time on this podcast, we're not going to be we're not going to be able to do full justice to this conversation. So I want to turn the conversation to the resources that you have to support people in building these skills. Of course, you mentioned coaching, you have that. You've also written a book, and I understand that you are in the process of releasing a second book shortly. So, just in terms of resources, be it the coaching, be it your books, be it anything that you offer, take a minute and tell us a bit about the ways that you have to help people build these skills.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So I've actually written currently three bestsellers. The original one was called Immediate Happiness, which is a manual on human behavior. The fourth book is called The Heart Map for Love, which is going very deep into my personal life, sharing what share with my high-end coaching clients. My website is meetanil.com, where you can find access to great content, videos, testimonials, and a way to access me if you need help with your relationship. If you need help with finding a partner, I'm launching the Smart Select system, an online program on how to find your ideal partner without the pain and suffering of dating. And if you have any questions, there's a way to reach me too. So I'm here on a mission to move, touch, and inspire you in any way that I can. I've spoken in 18 countries, 18 countries, eight, 18 countries, eight languages, four continents, TEDx, Fox News, Sky TV, ABC, NBC, iHeartRadio, Harvard. But I'm not telling that to impress you. But what I'm saying is that all of this happened because of one conversation.
And also, you are an expert. You've clearly put your 10,000 hours into becoming an expert on this subject, not only in your professional endeavors, but I'm sure your personal endeavors. We will give you credit for all of the things that you work through with your own relationship using these methods. So, the coaching you do, just briefly, that doesn't have to be person to person. So, a person can get virtual coaching from
Yeah,
you.
yeah, everything is virtual now after COVID. Everyone's
Right.
used to Zoom, and it's just so much easier. And when we do a one-to-one coaching call, we do it on Zoom. They get a copy of the recording so that they can watch it afterwards. They get a transcription so they can listen to it. They also get an AI breakdown of the insights that the person has gotten. So it brings even more value. When we do one-to-one, you don't have it, all of that. So it really is very powerful. And my guarantee is this: if we do a coaching call, you'll get some insights. And Vincent, we've had a call today. I know you've got some insights. I know the audience has got insights, but I guarantee every call will move you forward. And then if every call moves you forward, you're guaranteed success.
And we'll be sure to link all of your resources to the show notes here. Personally, as a financial coach, another reason that I like having conversations with people like you and getting to know you and your resources is simply because I have found that in order to coach people financially, and I've gotten to a point where I'll tell people this, in order to be coached, you have to be coachable. And when there is significant personal friction there, I don't pretend to be a relationship expert. I don't pretend to be a therapist. Sometimes it's obvious that things are going on there that is beyond the scope of this book. And I hate to just turn people away. I like to be able to tell them, you may want to check this out. You may want to check that out. So to have a book, you may want to check this out. I talked to this guy. I had him on my podcast a couple of months ago. You may want to check out his coaching services. That's always a blessing to me. And the countless numbers of people that I'm sure you've helped over the years would back me up on that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. You are absolutely right. I have picked up some tips that I can use in a lot of different places in both my professional and personal life. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for being on CFO at
Yeah.
Home.
Thank you, Vincent. And before I leave, just one thing. I'd like the audience to perform 5 random acts of kindness. Say thank you to someone, acknowledge your partner, make them feel great. And I promise you, you will start feeling so much more joy and love. Your capacity to love and be loved will increase.
Yet another tip that I hope the audience takes you up on, and I'm certainly going to take you up on myself. Thanks.
Thank you.